Uh, Today in this series, I'll be discussing some definitions, the basic concepts of replication of SARS coronavirus, and how these are uh, related to the development of SARS coronavirus 2 variants, as we are seeing a lot of variants. Starting with the history, in December 2019, we had the original SARS coronavirus 2 isolated from Wuhan, China. This was, as we all know, this was associated with an outbreak of pneumonia in China. Within next 15 days, we were able to culture isolate the virus. We were able to sequence the virus. And initially, everybody was very happy. Oh, it's a coronavirus, so nothing much problematic. However, now more than 1 year has passed. The first wave have already passed. Now we are in the middle of second wave, and we all know the consequences. Now, coming to certain definitions and basic concepts, like mutation arises as a natural byproduct of viral replication. As doctors, we all know that mutations are a part and parcel of normal replication process. Whenever we have a replication, the mutation will occur. Of this, RNA virus typically have a higher mutation rate than DNA viruses. DNA viruses have a good DNA polymerase enzyme which do excellent proofreading, and generally mutations are not a big problem with DNA viruses like herpes virus, cytomegalovirus. However, when we talk of RNA viruses, most of the RNA virus lack a RNA polymerase enzyme doing a proofreading. However, we are lucky in the sense that yes, coronavirus has a proofreading mechanism, but the proofreading mechanism is of low fatality. It is error-prone mechanism. Like it's like whenever we do a photocopy, if the photocopier is not working to printer is not working to the 100% efficacy, so every time we get a poor quality of the copy, and after some time it will happen that the copy which we are getting from the photocopier is entirely different from the original copy. This is what is exactly happening with our SARS coronavirus 2. And the second point is the process of natural selection. We all know the process of natural selection, that if we are having a mutation, the mutation can cause two things. First is the mutation is making the virus less transmissible and less pathogenic. But such type of mutations, such mutant virus will not survive. The virus is not interested. The virus is interested that somehow it propagates more, it transmits more. This happens with all the microorganisms. I'll give a classical example of Vibrio cholera. Initially, we have a classical Vibrio cholera everywhere in the world 100 years back. However, in 1964, the Altor strain came. This Altor strain of Vibrio cholera was less pathogenic and more transmissible. And today, the Altor strain has almost replaced the classical one. This is happening with the SARS coronavirus 2 also, and probably this will happen in the future. In future, it will become less pathogenic, more transmissible. Now, coming to certain definitions. First is mutations. Mutations, we all know that mutation refers to a change in the sequence. There are sense mutation, nonsense mutation, there are many terminology, but the most important is the point mutation. With the SARS coronavirus, everybody knows that D614G is a mutation in which a amino acid substitution is taking place at 614 position of spike glycoproteins. Now, there are certain terms, mutation, variants, strains. We need to have basic understanding because the terms are evolving so quickly. Mutations, we all understand, yes, okay, the sequence is changing. It is a mutation. With time, certain mutations accumulate. And once a certain amount of mutations have accumulated, the original strain change and it is known as variants. Now, CDC Atlanta has defined variants into three classes of variants. First is variant of interest or VOI. Second is variant of concern. And third is variant of high consequences. Of these, first two are important, variant of interest and variant of concern. Variant of interest are mutations are likely to affect receptor binding domain, reduce neutralization by existing antibodies, and it is predicted to affect transmissions, diagnostics, and therapeutics. Like it is a new mutation which we are expecting that probably it will be more transmissible, more pathogenic, it will be difficult to diagnose, but since it is new, we are currently studying it. This all comes under variant of interest. currently we have, I'll give two classical examples. We read, we all go through the media reports. We have a double mutant Indian variant. It is actually B1.617. Now, few days back, a triple mutant has come, B1.618. So these are new mutations. We are working on them, and probably with time they will become variant of concerns. Once it has been well established, yes, they are associated with more transmissibility, more pathogenicity. Coming to the second term, variant of concern. Variant of concern is a mutation which has been studied well, and there is a clear-cut evidence that of these following, few are present, like it has increased transmissibility or increased disease severity or significant reduction in neutralization by antibodies, reduced effectiveness of treatment, or diagnostic detection failures. Our variant of concern have few of these properties. Currently, there are 5 variant of concerns which have been recognized by CDC. First is the B117, that is the UK variant. Second is B1.351, that is a South African variant. Third is the P1 Japan / Brazil / Manaus variant. The fourth and fifth are from California, B1.427 and B1.429. The third term, variant of high consequence, till date the CDC has not identified any variant as variant of high consequence. Probably one day one of the variant of concern will be identified as variant of high consequence. Now, when we are talking of the variants, as we can see that initially the first mutation was D614G. It was in majority. Now majority of word strains are having this point mutation. Then other important variants are, first is the UK variant, second is South African, third is Brazil variant. All the 3 variants have a mutation in the S gene. It is a basically S gene which is identified by our neutralizing antibodies. And the last variant is the Indian variant or double mutant. It has 2 mutations, L452R and E484Q. These 2 mutations are also present in the spike protein. So after covering the first part of my talk, the basic definitions, yes, we have mutations, or based on the mutations, we can have variant of interest like double mutant or triple mutant, or we can have variant of concerns. Presently, we have 5 variant of concerns. Coming to the second part, the SARS coronavirus to genomic structure. As we see this genomic structure, the SARS coronavirus 2 has a genomic size of 30,000 characters or 30,000 kilobases. Of these 30,000 kilobases, almost 2/3 of the structure, from 0 till 21,500, this area is associated with non-structural proteins, and almost 8,000 area base pair are dedicated to structural proteins. Our SARS coronavirus 2 has approximately 20 proteins. Of the 20 proteins, 16 are non-structural proteins. That is the proteins which are required for replication of the virus. And virus makes sure that these proteins are not disturbed, the integrity of these proteins are maintained. Whereas we have 4 structural proteins. The structural proteins are spike protein, nucleocapsid protein, membrane protein, and envelope proteins. So majority of mutation occurs in these 4 proteins. Of these 4, the spike protein is the most notorious in that, because the spike protein, with the help of spike protein, the virus attaches to the ACE receptors. Majority of antibodies by natural infection or by vaccines are targeted against the spike proteins. In the spike protein, there is a region known as receptor binding domain. Generally, the virus changes that receptor binding domains. And virus tries to make sure that to survive, it doesn't change the non-structural proteins. Initial 22,000 base pair structure is highly conserved. So in fact, for the PCR, we generally take a gene from the structural proteins. Either we take S gene or E gene, and for the screening, and confirm it by RDRP or ORF1A or ORF1B. Now, for the second part is a proofreading mechanism by SARS coronavirus 2. Now, it is a positive strand RNA virus. At the time of replication, another strand of RNA is prepared. Now, non-structural protein 2 prepared by RDRP. This is the one which is responsible for RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, which is helping and making the replication strand. This is helped with other non-structural proteins, of which non-structural protein 13 is most important. This is the one which does the proofreading. So if there is a deficiency in proofreading, like this is the genome of the virus. If there is a proofreading, an exact copy is prepared. However, if there is no proofreading, then the errors are bound to occur. So whenever the virus is under pressure, either for antiviral agents like remdesivir. Remdesivir acts on non-structural protein 12, RDRP, or the virus is under the pressure of the neutralizing antibody by natural antibodies, or mostly by antibodies in a convalescent plasma. The virus does some changes in the proofreading mechanism and do mutations. And these are the mutations which are responsible for occurrence of new variants. Coming to the third part of my talk, why the variants arises. This I'm trying to explain by covering two articles. The first is SARS coronavirus 2 evaluation during treatment of chronic infection. This is from Nature February issue. In this article, they have discussed a 72-year-old male who was admitted in UK. The patient is immunocompromised with marginal B-cell lymphoma and is having chemotherapy. There is a previous history of vincristine, prednisolone, cyclophosphamide, and rituximab therapy. Now this patient develops SARS coronavirus 2 infection. The patient is immunocompromised. The patient is admitted for 102 days in the hospital. During his stay of 102 days, the research group has collected samples every third and fourth day. So they have, in 102 days time period, they have more than 23 samples of this patient. On these samples, they have done sequencing and PCR, and they have discussed their sequencing report, and they have shown that as the time progresses, there is an accumulation of mutations. Now, is my cursor visible? See, in this graph, what I can show is from day one. Thank you, ma'am. From day 1 to day 82 is in the first figure, and this is from day 82 to 101 days. So in this figure, what we are saying is that for in the initial 50 days, these are the proportions of reads with mutations, and this is the time period. So initial 50 days, there are not much mutations, but as we see that on day 45, first dose of remdesivir is given. As soon as the dose of remdesivir is given and virus comes under pressure of antiviral agents, the frequency of mutation has started to occur. As soon as the second dose of remdesivir goes, the number of mutations, especially in open reading frame 7 and open reading frame 2, goes on here. Now, when on day 64 and 65, the patient receives convalescent plasma therapy. As soon as the convalescent plasma therapy is given, there is a mutation in the spike gene, S gene. There is a spike D796H mutation. There is a point mutation in spike protein. There is a deletion in the spike gene under the pressure of convalescent plasma. As the titer of neutralizing antibody from plasma goes down, the mutation frequency decreases. When there is a third therapy with convalescent plasma and the frequency goes up. And it is clearly showing that this time there is a coexistence of a number of variants in this patient. This is the mutation prevalence in the spike protein, and it is clearly related to the doses of antivirals and remdesivir. So by this study, the authors have established, they are trying to establish that yes, under a pressure of antiviral agents and under a pressure of uh, neutralizing antibodies in patients who are chronically infected, there is a natural mutations and selection of mutations, and the variants arises. This is another paper from Clinical Infectious Disease. There is a brief report in which intractable COVID-19 disease in a patient who is having a chimeric antigen receptor modified T cell therapy. It's a case report from University of Pittsburgh, USA. They have discussed a patient who was having multiple myeloma. This again is interesting case report. So they have a patient with multiple myeloma who has undergone a lot of chemotherapies and treatment. Now this patient is admitted for first 70. The patient is diagnosed with COVID-19. The patient is admitted in the hospital. The patient is given a dose of convalescent plasma and remdesivir. These are the viral loads. As soon as the therapy is introduced, the viral loads go down. On day 17, the patient is clinically okay, and the patient is, although the patient is RT-PCR positive, the patient is discharged home. For next 20 days, from day 17 to day 37, the patient is at home, but the patient develops again clinical respiratory illness. So on day 37, the patient is readmitted. So the patient is tested with the complete viral panels. The patient is tested for the pathogens, other respiratory pathogens, for BDG and fungal infection. The full workup is done, but they could not find anything. Then they repeated a CT, they repeated RT-PCR, and this time the CT values were 13, suggestive of a reactivation, and the viral load was again high. So in this patient, for overall for 74 days, they did frequent sampling and sequencing, and here also they have demonstrated that yes, with the chronic infection the variants are arising, and majority they demonstrate that there are hardly any mutations in the non-structural ORF1A and 1B region. It is the S region of the virus which is the notorious and is associated with majority of mutations. And on day 72 they have demonstrated that there is a coexistence of almost 6 variants in this patient. Now, when we have a chronic patient in our ICU who is for 70-80 days admitted and the variants are developing, there are very high chances the variants are transmitted to the other patients in our ICU or to the healthcare workers and later spread to the community. Coming to my last slide, in this continuation, another interesting article has come in NEJM December issue. Here also they have followed a patient for the long time and re-demonstrated the same thing, that whenever we have a chronic patient who is immunosuppressive, probably like in influenza, we have the animals and the pigs as the mixing vessel or aardbirds as the mixing vessel, where three different strains are realigning and mixing and recombination is taking place. In SARS coronavirus 2, it is a point mutation which is actually occurring with time. They are accumulating and they are the cause of the arising of these variants. So with this, I'll finish my talk. Thank you very much.